All right, welcome. We've got a few attendees here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our heart-to-heart around safety today. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes to let participants in, and we'll get started with introductions. Okay, well, as people trickle in, we can jump onto our conversation, but a very, very warm welcome. We've got people from the West Coast in the US, as well as all across the pond in England. And we're so fortunate to have an opportunity to have this discussion. I want to welcome our panelists and my co-facilitator, Anna Freedman. I will be talking about the topic of safety, and as we can imagine through the pandemic and other life events that have happened over the course, well, of all of our lives, really, that this means so many things in so many different ways, and really is the foundation of a well and just community. And the way we think about safety, the way that we navigate it, is an incredible feat to hear from so many different backgrounds and upbringings and what it's like across the globe. So I'm Elizabeth Bachrad. I joined Global Women for Wellbeing through MIMSEMT, who invited me in through an initiative that we were working on in global wellness. She blew my mind with what she's doing with the organization, and I know that everyone here is involved, and we'll be doing those introductions. But the opportunity for women and girls to rise and thrive, and have the leadership and mentorship, and also the skills to navigate life, and how we do this together. So thank you. That's my welcome. Anna, did you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I've heard so many great things about Global Women for Wellbeing. I know Elizabeth holds you all in the highest regard, so I'm delighted to be here. This is one of my favorite topics, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the three young leaders here today. I've previously worked with Elizabeth. We take design thinking into education, and I look forward to sharing more.
Thank you. Helen, let's start with you. Would you mind introducing yourself, telling us where you live, where you're from, and perhaps how you've gotten included into Global Women for Wellbeing?
Hi, I'm Helen and I live near London. I got into GW4W through Annalie and her mum. So we went to that. It was for International Women's Day. I loved it. I joined, and here I am.
Thank you. Annalie.
I'm Annalie and I live near London as well. And I was part of GW4W through my mum, and I just wanted to be able to use my voice and speak up.
Thank you. And Alexa.
I'm Alexa. I'm from California in the United States, and I got involved with Global Women through my aunt Elizabeth. She's right here, and she introduced me to this when she heard about the activism that I was doing at my school and thought it would be a good fit for me. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So as we talk about let's keep us safe, it's such a fascinating topic because, as I mentioned, it means so many different things. So I'd like to start by asking each of you, what does safety mean for you? And can you share a time when you felt completely safe, perhaps maybe unsafe, and what that was like for you? Alexa, let's start with you.
Well, to me, safety means being with people that I trust. So sometimes people feel safe in like specific environments, and I can agree, but where I feel most safe is with people that I know and trust. Some places where I completely feel safe are with family, like at home, and also like at summer camp, I really feel safe there because it's like a closed environment with people that I trust and love and I've been going with for years. And usually I feel unsafe when I'm alone.
Annalia, would you like to add to that?
So I agree with everything that you said. I also feel that when you feel safe, it's when you're feeling comfortable and relaxed and you don't feel like there's any danger and you feel like in control of the situation. And where I can feel completely safe is just recently I redid my room because I just didn't feel like it was a place, like usually your room is where you want to be, but I just didn't want to go in my room anymore. So now it's like when I walk in there, I'm like, oh, it's so nice. I really want to be here. So I now realize that's what it's like to feel safe. And also, again, like with friends and family as well. And then unsafe, this is kind of sad, but like walking alone at night is something like I don't always feel unsafe, but it's just you feel a bit uneasy. And also like in the classroom sometimes, like with male teachers, they've made some strange comments sometimes and I just don't feel completely safe there.
Thank you for sharing. Helen, over to you.
So safety for me is about looking out for each other. I always remember this one story which my mum told me, which was when she was walking home late at night one day, someone came up to her with a knife and tried to cut the straps of her handbag. But luckily a neighbour was watching and called the police, so everything was okay. So what I take away from that is we've just got to all look out for each other to keep each other safe. A time when I felt safe, it wasn't really a place, it was more like a moment. So I was with my friend and I was just about to go home and she turned and she said to me, you know, text me when you get home safe. And, you know, I just felt really comforted by that. So, yeah. And then a time when I felt unsafe, kind of similar to what Alexa and Annalie said, kind of about being alone. I've got some alleyways near where I live, so just walking through them for me by myself. So, yeah.
Anna, when you hear those stories, can you share a reflection as it relates to you and young leaders?
Thank you. It's so interesting because all three of your stories I can relate to. And I guess disappointingly, I still feel the same thing. I'm in a different city. I'm away from London where my home is. And I was walking through Cardiff yesterday and I didn't feel safe. So I can share that with you, that alarm for my physical safety in a street on my own, and that was in daylight. So I really share that with you. I feel like there's so many aspects to safety. There's that physical one that we all share. There's an emotional side that I'm really interested in my work. Can I bring through?
Yeah.
Can I take it forwards? Thank you. So, yeah, there's this emotional safety, which is that sense of feeling safe within ourselves, feeling safe to express, to create, to be vulnerable, to even to learn, to share. And I'm really interested actually in how you feel about that, and when perhaps you may have felt safe in yourself, or who may have facilitated that safety. Because in the work I do, one of my key focuses really is how do we hold this container for safety with our young people, with our children and young people? How do we potentialize them through feeling that emotional sense of safety? How does that stand? Because when we don't feel safe, then our defenses come up. And my feeling nowadays for children and young people is that wounding, we live in such a wounding world, and it's so common to walk around with these really thick defenses. So who we really are lays really buried under all of this armory. And from defenses, we get to a whole host of kind of epidemics of anxiety and depression and aggression and all other behaviors. So I'm really interested in how can we soften our defenses to be who we are and evolve through that safe space. And so often I see that perhaps adults can hold the space for children and shield them and young people. And I wonder what your relationships are like with the adults in your life and how safety intersects with that.
Helen, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so definitely I feel the most safe when I can just be myself, and I'm really lucky to just allow me to be myself. That's when my guard comes down. I just, I feel like I can just be myself. That's when I feel safe.
Emily, how about you?
Well, with what you said about how can we like make people realize that you're building up these defenses and how you can like feel safe within yourself, I feel like that's definitely something that at school we should talk about more, and we shouldn't shy away from like mental health and things like that, because I feel like that all comes hand in hand, and when we can talk about it, it's so much easier. Because I feel like at school, especially for me, in the past I've like built those defenses to protect me from like comments that may occur or anything like that. And I feel like although my school's really accepting, it's really hard to feel like you can be yourself. So sometimes anyway.
So say a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, when you feel like you can be yourself, what happens to you inside and how you show up amongst your friends or even in school when you're learning?
Yeah, so especially with my friends, I feel like I've found my friends that I feel like I can be really close with and fully be myself. And there are some like classes and stuff that I just feel like I more can feel like I can be myself and I can speak up and have discussions and things like that. I just feel like it takes a while I need to build that trust with everyone before I feel like I'm safe and I can speak openly. I feel like that's why every year when it's parents' evening, parents always, the teachers always say, like, she's so quiet, she doesn't speak. And it's because like at that point I haven't built that trust yet. I don't feel fully safe. But until this conversation today, I didn't even realize. So thank you for making me realize that.
It's so powerful. Alexa, what about you?
Well, to piggyback off of what Annalie said, schools near me are starting to like kind of address mental health and like talk about it. I know the school that I'm currently going into, which starts next week, they're really trying to start addressing mental health and mental health safety and making students feel safer so they can really express themselves and like be who they are and that kind of thing. Because in high school, it's when you kind of realize who you are usually, and people my high school is starting to want to create a safer space to do that, to express themselves and to express like safety and mental health and all that stuff. So I'm grateful for that because they're starting to kind of realize that mental health is very important, especially in the ages that we are and the stress level of school and all that stuff. So I'm grateful for that because it really, hopefully, it'll allow me to be myself more at school.
And how about going into new situations with new teachers, perhaps even new students? How, Alexa, with your school in particular, how will you know if they've created a safe space for you in some of these new environments?
Well, right now I'm taking their word for it because they did talk about creating a space and like a place where you can go when your mental health is like bad, like a classroom where you can just kind of sit and like, that kind of thing. But I won't really know until I get there and experience that, use that room if I choose to. So, I mean, hopefully it'll be that way. I'm taking their word for it right now, but I won't know truly until I get there.
That's so interesting. Do either of your schools have that type of program, or that they might be addressing it this year, perhaps?
Yeah, well, my school last year kind of started a wellness program. So it was called like Wellness Wednesdays. And basically on Wednesdays, we would have a shorter day and we would also like do some programs so our teachers could check on our mental health and our physical health and our safety. So they kind of just started doing stuff like that near me. So I know it's going to, like, they're still going to do some of those programs to the new school I'm going to. And hopefully they'll kind of build off the programs that they created last year. Because when we were in like quarantine last year, a lot of students were struggling with their mental health and being on Zoom all day. So they created a wellness program for that, for our safety.
It's pretty incredible. I can't wait to hear how that evolves. And as you talk about the connection with emotional, mental health, and physical safety, we've seen a couple weeks back now what happened with Simone Biles while she was competing in the Olympics. I don't know if you've watched or read or saw what had happened, but to reflect on anybody that didn't get a chance to see her experience. Perhaps, I mean, I'd love to hear how you responded to how she responded, but because she connected her mental safety with her physical safety, she basically stopped, right, and said, I can't go on right now because of many reasons. And largely because she didn't want to get hurt. And I think that's such an interesting connection that we don't usually see out in the media, perhaps. Would you guys like to share your reflections on what happened with Simone Biles in the Olympics and that connection? Annalie, I think you're on. Are you on mute? No. No. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm really glad that she spoke up about it, and I feel like she made everyone aware that it can happen to anyone and you can feel unsafe at any time or need to take a break at any time. And it was some people's reactions to it that just made me a bit annoyed, because I saw a lot of comments of people saying that she was like being a sore loser or something because she wasn't winning at the time when she dropped out, so she was dropping out because of that reason. And it's just like, I don't get how people can twist such a sensitive thing, which takes so much courage to speak up about, into such a like negative thing. And also with her needing to stop like within the sport, I relate to that because this time last year I stopped rowing. I used to row for like 3 years, and I was doing it at an intense level, like 6 times a week. And it just got to the point where I didn't realize how much damage it was actually doing. Like, because when you're in it, you're just in it. You don't realize all the different factors and all the different things, like being weighed all the time. I just didn't realize how toxic it was. And so I'm just glad that I think I'm lucky that I got out of the situation and it wasn't any worse than it already was, because it just, I don't know, I just feel like within sport especially, it's so toxic, and people who aren't in that environment don't realize how bad it is. So I just really sympathize with Simone, and I'm glad that she took a break, because it takes a lot of strength to take a break.
Thank you for your reflection. Helen?
Yeah, definitely similar to what Annalie was saying. So a couple years ago, I was doing ballet, and it just got to the point where it was interfering with how I saw myself, how I saw my body. And I think I just needed to take a break from it. And I think what Simone showed everyone was that you have to put your emotional and physical safety first. It has to come before sport, it has to come before a job. That has to be the number one priority in your life. And it's not about what anyone else says. It's not about what USA Gymnastics, it's not about what they thought she should do. It's about what you think you should do in yourself, because you know you're going to make the best decision.
Thank you. Alexa?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you both said on that topic. I know a lot of people had mixed feelings about what Simone says, but I just think that it was very brave of her, because not a lot of athletes, especially at the Olympic level, speak out about like their mental health and stuff like that. And I think it was just kind of like groundbreaking in that way, because she needed to take that time off for her. And I mean, overall, I think her mental health is more important. I mean, I know it's the Olympics, but it's just a game, it's just a sport. It's not worth like her being afraid of getting hurt. And I know a lot of people had mixed feelings about that because of the time that she left the team. But I think that it's just very important that she took that time off for herself, for her mental health, because that's really important. And she recognized that she needed to put herself first. And I was just thinking how brave of her it was.
Anna, I was wondering how you connect emotional safety, as we're on this topic, with we've had many discussions about digital, you know, how social media really exposed all of those mixed feelings that everybody had, yes, surrounding the Olympics, but it exposes our mixed feelings around almost everything. And did you have some specific questions around digital safety and how it connects to our emotional well-being?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, I'm really, really looking forward to hearing Annalie, Helen and Alexa's opinions and ideas around this, because what I see so much in terms of the digital side and social media is this pull to measure up, to win approval, and if I might borrow one of your words, Annalie, how toxic this can be on our emotional health. And secondly, what I see also is this orbiting around peers. So in young people's lives without any adults intercepting that. And I suppose I'm interested to hear your thoughts and any ideas of how we can uphold our own emotional safety in this digital world we live in. Yes. I mean, I could give you some of my ideas, but I'd like to hear yours first.
I feel like making sure you're safe online is making sure that you're looking at things that are healthy for you, and they're improving your life. They're not just like, meh, oh, I'm scrolling through this, oh, that's making me feel bad, I'm comparing myself to that person. And like Helen gave me this book, Women Don't Owe You Pretty, and I really loved it. I really recommend it. And it was just talking about making like what you're seeing online something that you would want in real life, and constantly like positive things, affirmations, like body positivity and everything. And I think if you make sure that that's what you're looking at, then it won't be so like toxic for you. And I think it's really easy to get sucked into looking at things that aren't as good for you. And I feel like you should just try and recognize when that's happening and just put away your phone or whatever you're looking at and go and do something else that's better for you. And then if you do that more than once, you'll realize how much better you feel. I think it's definitely easier to just keep scrolling. But for me, I've tried several times, like going out on a walk or something, or reading a book, and I just feel so much better afterwards. So yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. That takes real willpower and discipline. So I'm really pleased you brought that in. It's so interesting. I wonder if Helen and Alexa have any ideas to add.
Yeah, just to add off of what she said, I think like mental digital safety is very important, especially with what you said about taking breaks from scrolling and looking at what everyone is posting at all times can definitely be great. I mean, recently I didn't have my phone for a couple of weeks, and I really felt better without it, without like the constant like looking on social media, replying to texts, just like that kind of thing. I think it made me feel better for those weeks that I was gone. I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. And I think I definitely saw an improvement in my mental health. I think it's important to take like social media breaks because it can be really stressful and like just hard to look at sometimes. I mean, especially like during quarantine and everything, it was really hard to look like on the internet because everything was just about like COVID, like everything. And honestly, it was just like a constant reminder of like reality that sometimes I didn't think I really needed.
Thank you, Alexa. And how about you, Helen?
Yeah, exactly what Annalie and Alexa were saying. It's so easy to get sucked into comparing yourself with those on the internet. Most people aren't going to post when they're having a mental breakdown, when they're having a tough point in their life. And it's so easy to compare yourself to someone else's highlight reel. You don't see everything that goes on behind the scenes, and it's so easy to think their life is so great. Why isn't mine like that? You know, so definitely taking breaks from scrolling on social media. For me, I just don't have Instagram anymore because I just find that I'm better without it. But definitely less time on my phone makes me feel happier. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds universal. I feel like you're really good role models about lowering the focus and the priority on social media now. That's really refreshing to hear. And I'm so pleased you all contributed on that. That feels like it's going to make a big difference to your sense of self, that it's completely disparate to whatever happens on social media. And so you have that inner strength to withstand whatever you might see on those times that you are on it.
It's such an interesting all of your reflections are so interesting because at this time in my life, I resonate with what you're saying about taking breaks, taking apps off the phone. And yeah, at a time when we're more connected than we've ever been because of the digital advances, we've lost the sense of face-to-face connection, and rightfully so because of the pandemic. And I know that we're easing back in to school and other aspects of our life. How did it feel during the pandemic when there was not just the sense of awareness around your physical safety, but with the epidemic and the pandemic of loneliness? How does that make you think about safety when we think about loneliness? Alexa, I'll start with you.
So over the pandemic, I was still able to keep in touch with some of my friends through calling, but I know I definitely did not stay in touch with everyone. Some people were just bad at texting, bad at responding, bad at, that kind of thing. But like, it definitely can result with people definitely struggling with their mental health, feeling lonely, just kind of sitting in your room in front of a computer all day, every day for, almost like a year. It was just like, I know it definitely impacted like many people's health and their feeling of loneliness. And I know that also made people feel like unsafe, which is not a good thing. So, many people felt safe in their own home, but also you were kind of just stuck in your home. So it was kind of like that.
Could you add in perhaps any suggestions around perhaps if someone's lonely or if they're experiencing loneliness and what they might be able to do to feel safer?
To feel safer, I know you can, call your friends. You can just kind of occupy yourself. Sometimes distraction of just by like watching movies, that kind of thing, journaling, like kind of keeping your mental health up. I know a lot of people started journaling over like quarantine, at least near me, and like writing down their thoughts and kind of getting it all out is like, it's a good suggestion because that, as well as just keeping in touch as best as you can with people who are important to you.
Thank you. Helen, what about you?
Yeah, adding to what Alexa said about journaling, something I love to do is write it down and then throw it away in the bin. I don't know, it just kind of feels like I'm getting it out and it's gone. Definitely spend time with your family if you can, maybe go on a walk with your friend. I think, yeah, just connecting with people face to face if you can. Obviously, it's been really hard during the pandemic. Just makes you feel less lonely.
Annalie, anything to add?
Definitely, I would say like meeting up with friends to go on a walk. There was this one friend that like last year in like November I started being friends with them, and then we went into lockdown again, and I just became closer with them because we were constantly going on walks and stuff, and I think that kept us going throughout the time that we were in lockdown. And also I was just thinking about like homeless people and how difficult it must have been, because if people weren't walking down the streets, they would have felt even more lonely than they already do. So I don't know, that just kind of popped into my head. But yeah, and like their safety on the streets, like I don't know if they ever feel safe. But I just thought that was quite important to bring up.
Yeah, I'm so pleased you brought in homeless people, because the pandemic has also made me really feel concerned and some sense of care around many people, including homeless people. And the other piece I wanted to share is that I love that you talked about journaling and Helen throwing it away, because these are what we might call emotional playgrounds, and they're absolutely pivotal to having that wave of emotions that we have to bounce back, and not get stuck in that flat sense of apathy that the pandemic may have brought to us. So some people, you seem to all like writing, but it might be art or music, nature and movement. All these kinds of play really are really important, whatever our ages are, especially through this pandemic. So we can move our feelings and emotions and not get stuck in them.
So I have, I wanted to bring this next question up, because I know that societally we have different things that exist in our environments that require us to have different rules of safety, if you will. So for example, in California, where Alexa and I are from, growing up, we would have earthquake drills and have to pay attention to those natural disaster safety elements. And then quite frankly, unfortunately, in the US, there is attention to gun safety and what the requirements are for schools that have to attend to that. So I'm going to start with you, Alexa, and then I'd like to hear Annalie and Helen's reflections on this, coming from a different culture and growing up in a different country. But what is that like for you to experience those types of safety regulations and preparedness, if you will?
Well, as you said, I mean, in California, the safety drills that we do are usually for earthquakes, shootings, and for fires. So at my school, we usually do these drills at the beginning of the year, so everyone can learn how to deal with the situation in an event like this happens. So during earthquakes, we have to like get under a desk and put our hands like over our neck into like a little ball position. In a fire, we have to meet on a field or in a safe place. And if there's a shooter in the area, we do have to go like on lockdown and like lock ourselves into the classroom. So I know that usually the like drills for gun safety are the scariest, because you're just basically, until you know anything further, you're just kind of locked in your classroom with your lights off. Like you basically just have to kind of sit still, which I know, especially for little kids, it's very like it can be very overwhelming and scary for them. And even if it's just a drill, like sometimes you can still feel unsafe, even though you're like locked in a room. Sometimes people with like claustrophobia and stuff like that can just make people feel very overwhelmed and stuff like that. I mean, I know these drills are necessary for our safety, but sometimes they are scary.
Helen or Annalie, what do you think about when you hear that, and what is it like for you when you do safety precautions at school?
The gun safety and the earthquake safety sounds, it's strange to hear that that's something that you do. For us, it's just fire drills, and I mean, I love how I don't love, but at the start of every year and throughout the year, we always do like fire drill practices, and everyone just finds it so annoying. But I now realizing that it's so important for your safety, and the fact that we find it annoying to do this one drill when you're doing 3 different drills just brings it home that it's not that big of a deal and it's just for your safety. but it's just so sad, especially for the gun safety one. It terrifies me that that's something you have to do.
Yeah, I really said it was really strange to hear about how the drills are so really rigid, if you like, because when we have fire drills, it's just going outside onto a field. I can't imagine what it's like for young kids to be locked in a room, and like you said about claustrophobia, it just feels so different here.
Yes, it feels so alarming. I know my children, the fire alarm is hugely alarming to them. And from what Alexa says, this is just on another level. And it makes me feel alarmed for these children, because this is the fuel for anxiety. So the brain divorces from the thing that is just too alarming to even consider and goes on to these kind of obsessions or rigidities that we so often see in our young people. So yeah, I share all of your alarm around that.
Okay. As we start to come to a close, I wanted to reflect on some moments of optimism and look at safety in terms of how we can attempt to create cultures of care. And I use this term because it feels like, even just in hearing what we talked about, and of course over the course of the last year or so, that we live in this culture of fear. And this, what Anna mentioned, and what that does to our emotions, as well as physiologically, how we show up in the world, how we be ourselves. Like all of you have mentioned, at school and at home, how important this is. So a culture of care model includes, of safety, includes resources, relationships, positive relationships, including mentors and leaders in our community, accountability, and actually participation. So can you, for each of you, can you share what that means to you? How does it feel to grow up and participate in society as it relates to safety? Helen, can we start with you?
I'm not too sure about this question. Could you repeat?
It's a big question. Yeah. So part of what being safe is, and creating a culture of care, is about being able to participate in our society. So it's almost the combat of loneliness, the combat of fear. It's the ability for us to show up and be ourselves and participate. Can you reflect on what that means for you as you grow up and become a leader in our society?
I'm not too sure about this question.
Yeah. Annalie or Alexa, does it resonate with you a bit?
Well, I think as I grow up, I want to make people feel safe rather than unsafe. I want to be a safe space for others. And I think using resources, relationships, accountability, and participation, like I can be a leader, I can be a safe person for people to come to. Like using these aspects, like I can keep people safe and I can develop good relationships with others so they can come to me when they feel unsafe, or safe whenever they want to.
And Alexa, I know that your activism to register to vote, but how do you encourage people to get out there and vote and participate in society? And how does that relate to safety, perhaps?
Well, I think when people vote, I've never voted, but I voted in like smaller things like school elections and all that stuff. And I think just kind of like putting yourself out there, and it just like makes you feel good. Like your voice makes you feel good. Like many people don't like resonate with like activism. It's not their thing, but that can be their form of activism, instead of if they're a little scared to speak up, or none of the issues kind of they don't care. I mean, it's kind of sad, but some people just don't really care about that kind of stuff. But I think that voting like makes people have their voice feel heard. They can vote for someone who they believe in. They can run themselves, that kind of thing. I just think that people, it's important to vote to make your voice feel heard and participating in society. So yeah.
Thank you. Annalie, any reflections on that?
Leading on from that, I just feel like, especially as women, like women have fought so hard for us to be able to vote. So it almost feels disrespectful if we're not voting, because they went through so many different things to get us to be able to vote. And so why would you, like, what's the point of being part of the society if you're not actively choosing to do or what's happening, or at least participating and sharing ideas? Because otherwise it just feels like you're passively like being there. Like you might as well just permanently be sleeping or something. Like I just don't see how it can make you feel happy and like fulfilled. You just wouldn't feel like you had a purpose. And so I just feel like from that I would definitely never not vote. And I feel like that's why it's so important for everyone to just vote. And like you said, like you don't have to be actively using your voice, but just by voting that you're doing your part and you can feel part of the society.
Well, I'd love to ask a final question, and if Anna, if you have any final reflections, but what can you do as young leaders to prepare your generation to keep everyone safe? And then a second part is, what can we do as parents, as guardians, as mentors to help you as well? Helen, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, so what we can do is actively engage in conversation, and if someone shares their experience with you, ask them, you know, what can I do to support you? Thank you for confiding in me. And then for parents and guardians, if we can get parents to share their experience, it's great. So we feel like we're not alone on our journey. And in schools, if we can talk about consent more, what is and what's not consent, then I think that would really help.
Annalie?
I feel like definitely talking about safety and just being like reassuring to people, and like especially like I know the teachers and staff at school that are the most respected are the ones that are open to whatever you're saying and sharing your thoughts, and also they're happy to just let you speak and then they'll help you. It's not it doesn't feel like they're judging you, and I feel like that's just every person just needs to suggestions and just helping everyone out, because if you do that for one person, that one person will do it for someone else, and it will just kind of be like dominoes, and then hopefully it will end up being safer in society.
Alexa?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said. I mean, to keep us safe, adults can like just support us at all times and just work with us, listen to us. I mean, building meaningful relationships with your kids and your friends, and just kind of let them know that you'll always be here for them. You'll always listen to them. That's really important. And I mean, as young leaders, we can always be good friends and listeners, and encouraging others to participate in things that they might enjoy or matter to them is just very important. And I think that as young leaders, especially women, we can always support each other and be good friends to each other.
Hannah, any reflections on that?
Just taking all that in, that was really insightful and really thrilling to hear all your contributions. I feel like the adults, I feel, yeah, two things really. It's about practicing, receiving and giving a sense of safety. And for the adults in your lives, those relationships that you mentioned, Alexa, are absolutely pivotal. We all know that lifelong health in all its facets, emotional, physical, mental, begins in the early years and is the fundamentals are the relationships, developing those connections between adults and children and young people. And when we foster those and give the invitation to grow and emerge, and that's conducive of safety in itself, let alone offering our young people that sense that we understand them, that we know them. I think that confers a lot of safety. Annalie at the beginning talked about trust. I think that's really pivotal too, which is a byproduct really of these meaningful relationships. So adults have a duty really, it feels, to hold safety for our children and young people, and so that they may be all these beautiful leaders, and then that hierarchy falls to you. So when you receive it, you can feel it, and you can offer that sense of safety to the other people in your, or other children or other people in your life. So it kind of cascades, and that's what nature intended really, that with our care, a cascading sense of care.
That's a beautiful image, a beautiful thought and image, cascading sense of care. I love that. Yeah. Wow. And this, as Global Women for Wellbeing always promotes, is the idea of inclusive environments where we pull everyone up together. When you thrive, I thrive, we thrive. And I think that's a beautiful way to also set the foundation for safe spaces for us to come back to when we need to get back up. So I will just go around and ask you for one word as a final reflection, as well as I just wanted to extend my gratitude for all of your participation, and for Global Women for Wellbeing to offer this space to feel safe enough to talk about all of this. So Alexa, I'll start with you. Can you describe in one or two words how you're feeling?
I'm feeling moved. I really enjoyed this conversation, so I'm feeling moved. Thank you all for the great convo.
Thank you. And Helen?
I'm feeling connected. It was so nice to hear about everyone's experiences and stories. So yeah, lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Emily?
Feeling uplifted and heard. It was really nice to be part of the conversation, and feel like it was really important. Safety was to speak about.
Beautiful. Thank you. With that, we'll close the session for today. And please contribute your ideas for the next Heart to Heart. It's always really amazing to hear such beautiful young voices, and keep continuing to have these conversations and extend that culture of care. Thank you.